Hi everyone, this is Akim Yagantishwardu. Welcome back to our machine learning sessions. Today I'm going to cover very important topic called as types of machine learning. These are the different categories of machine learning like supervised learning, unsupervised learning, and reinforcement learning. In this session, mainly I will cover what is supervised learning, what are the different categories of supervised learning. And majorly, if you see this diagram and you can observe, supervised learning is nothing but task driven, predicting next value. What is it means? We'll see with an example. Unsupervised learning, identifying the clusters. We'll take a separate session on unsupervised learning. And reinforcement learning, also learning from mistakes, what it means, positive reward, negative reward. We'll talk about reinforcement learning in the separate session. And first, we'll start with supervised learning. Supervised learning consists of a target or outcome variable that is called as dependent variable, which is used to predict the given set of predictors independent variables. And so this is simple example. Let us say you are having lot of pictures of a dog and not a dog, and you are having set of features and corresponding label whether it is a dog or not. 0 means not a dog and 1 means dog. On top of these input features, we can apply our machine learning algorithm. We are going to predict the final outcome. We'll see with an example. Again, it is classified into classification and regression. Let us take some example and we'll discuss about this. So types of machine learning algorithm, as I told, there will be supervised learning, unsupervised learning, unsupervised learning, and reinforcement learning. In this session, as I told, mainly I'm going to discuss only about supervised learning. Remaining, we are going to discuss in a separate sessions. What is supervised learning? In simple terms, I'm going to explain. Because when you start working in industry with the live applications, you will be given a set of data sets. They will give you some database data sets or some Excel sheets or CSV sheets, where first you need to identify whether it is supervised learning or unsupervised learning. So after identifying that, then you are going to apply machine learning algorithm. So how to identify whether it is a supervised learning? Let us take simple example, diabetes dataset. Diabetes dataset. In diabetes dataset, you are having set of features. Let me show you some example dataset which I have in my system. So let us take some simple example. This is my diabetes dataset, which is having set of features and a label. So that's what, if you see my slides where I'm representing outcome variable or label, right? Here, if you see, these are the input features in my data set and outcome label. Let us first separate all these features. So pregnancy is glucose, blood pressure, skin thickness, insulin, BMI, diabetes pedigree function, and age, and finally outcome. In machine learning, please remember these technical terms. Inputs are called as features. Inputs are called as features. Outcome is called as label. These are the terms you need to remember, because in interviews you will get a questions how many features your data set is having, what is the label in your data set. These are the common questions. Don't confuse there. Inputs are nothing but features. Your output is nothing but label. So you need to remember these technical terms. Whenever you are discussing about machine learning, you need to use these terms, features and label. Here, what is supervised learning is? Supervised learning is nothing but if your data set consists of both input and output. If your data set consists of both input and output, inputs and outputs. That data set is called as supervised learning data set. Then your data set belongs to supervised learning data set. So please remember this sentence. If your data set consists of both inputs and output, that is features and label, then your data set is categorized as a supervised learning data set. Again, in supervised learning, there are two more classifications. There are two more categories. One is classification and another one is regression. Okay, so your data set consists of both inputs and outputs. Then how to identify whether it is a classification problem or regression problem? If you see this diabetes data set, if you observe the final label is whether the patient is affected with diabetes or not. That is 0 and 1. If the patient is affected with the diabetes, then it is 1. If the patient is not affected with diabetes, that is 0. Nothing but your output label is of type classification type, means you are categorizing that record into yes or no type. The patient is having diabetes or no diabetes, COVID-19 or not. Something like that. If you are able to classify your input into categories, then that problem is called as classification. And mainly you need to see output. In that output, if it is of type classification type. Classification type means you are able to classify your output, that is yes or no, or 0 or 1, or very limited values, very few values. Like sometimes your classification problem may not be only two values, that is binary values. Multi-label classification also will be there. So for example, you are working with some student data set. You need to provide grade for your student. Grades may be something A plus is nothing but exceptional, nothing but a student is 10 out of 10 kind of thing. And A, B or C and D is nothing but, let us assume, fail. So your outcome may consist of very few values. Those are able to categorize your input data into particular category. So then that kind of data set is called as classification problem. So don't confuse only final outcome should contain only two values. That is wrong. Sometimes you will get multi-label classification like this. Even though, for example, in my college, I have 10,000 students, I cannot go and give 10,000 different ratings, right? Even 10,000 students, there will be very few gradings, that may be 4 or 5 or max 6. So A plus means exceptional and D means some fail or E means fail. Some very few grades I'm going to give. So that categorization type problems are called as classification problems. So this diabetes data set is one of the classification problem. Yeah, so how to differentiate regression? Means if you observe this classification, I think you are clear, right? Yes or no type or a very few limited values. Even 10,000 students or 1 lakh students, I cannot give 10,000 different grades or 1 lakh different grades. There will be very limited values. So this kind of problems, we will call it as a classification problem. So what exactly regression problem? I have one more data set. Let us see. There is one more data set, petrol consumption data set. So here my task is to predict how much petrol is consumed. If you see the output variable, these are the input features. Along with there is output variable. If you see the output variable, that is 541, 524, 561, 414, 410, 457, means there will be different values. These are called as continuous values in your output. Regression also, it is supervised learning. but which is having, here also you need to check output. Here the output is continuous values. Continuous values. If your output is continuous values, then we can say that is a regression problem. Let us take simple example, salary prediction. Let us assume my student is attending some Wipro or Google or some other Microsoft he is attending. I need to predict what salary he will get. So for example, if an experienced person is attending an interview, there will be different salary based on the performance in the interview or experience or education. There will be different categories. The salary will be differs, right? So here, let us assume Wipro, I'm attending, my student is attending an interview. In Wipro, first I need to collect all the historical data about their employees. Means here, if you see based on their experience, performance, categories, education levels, the salary will be different. First employee, maybe B.Tech and 2 years experience, 2 years experience, salary maybe 30K or 40K. And next employee, 3 years experience, maybe 45K. And next employee, 50K. And 1 year experience, maybe 30K. Or fresher, maybe 25K. Or 10 years experience, 10 lakh, something, let us say 1 lakh, some 20 years experience, something 2.5 lakh, and so on. Just some simple example. If there are 10,000 employees, the salaries may or may not be equal, different, but that output is a continuous variable. So this kind of algorithms, we can call it as a regression problem. Here, remember one important note when how you are going to identify whether it is a supervised learning algorithm or not is, so first thing is, if you get a data set, first check whether the data set is having inputs and outputs. Inputs and output. Nothing but label and feature. Features and label. So then that data set is called as supervised learning data set. In this, again, you need to check output. If output is of type yes or no or 0 or 1 or very limited values, then it is called as a classification problem. Classification problem. And if your data set consists of continuous values like house price prediction, if it is 2 BHK, there will be different price. If it is 4 BHK, it will be different. 3 BHK, it will be different. If it is having balcony, it will be different. If it is in city, it will be different. If it is in town, it will be different. Means if it is metro city, it will be different. Based on the places, based on the number of house, means rooms, it may vary different. The house price will be very different. So that kind of problems, continuous values in the output, then the problem is called as regression. So don't worry about how to apply classification algorithm, regression algorithm, because here I'm giving the definition, but actual use cases we'll discuss later in the multiple sessions I will take to discuss different use cases with complete machine learning life cycle. This is important note you need to remember how to identify your data set is supervised learning data set. Thank you for everyone. Stay tuned for further updates. Please subscribe my channel for further updates.